In April and May of 1977, antagonism between Libya and Egypt became such that groups of demonstrators in the two countries attacked each other's consulates. Libya's head of state, Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi, claimed that Egypt was trying to provoke a war in order to seize Libyan oil fields. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat denied the charge. Tensions continued to grow, and in June of 1977, Gaddafi ordered 225,000 Egyptian civilians expelled from Libya. On 21 July 1977, gunfire on the country's border erupted into 4 days of war. The fighting was very costly on both sides. Tanks and airplanes were used extensively in battles along the border, and Egyptian planes destroyed numerous Libyan aircraft on the ground. Finally, on 24 July 1977, the president of Algeria managed to work a ceasefire between the two antagonists. So this is scenario number 14 from the game Test of Arms, which is part of the First Battle series, published by GDW. This game was published in 1988. So scenario number 14 is titled Hellfire Pass Revisited. The background for this scenario goes like this. It's dated 22 July 1977. On 21 July 1977, Libyans crossed the wire into Egypt and raided the Egyptian border town of Saloum, then withdrew. Sadat said that he would teach Gaddafi a lesson he would never forget. As part of Sadat's campaign of retribution, elements of Egypt's 3rd Mechanized Division, Cairo 1st Army Reserve, advanced to Fort Capuzzo, now known as Musaid Hellfire or Hellfire Pass, and engaged in intensive combat with 3 brigades of the Libyan 9th Armored Division. So this is played on map number 3 from the Test of Arms game. So this is map number 3. It's situated long way east-west, short way north-south. The objective: the Egyptians seek to inflict maximum casualties on the Libyan 3rd Armored Brigade. So these are the Egyptians who have entered the map on the east side, and this force here are the Libyans. So they are defending, the Egyptians are attacking. Initial conditions: the Egyptian player is the attacker and has the initiative. The Libyan player sets up first. So I set up the Libyans basically. I put some forces on the hills here to the north and south, and I put some tanks and the leader, the one leader in the scenario, in the woods here, and they've advanced into the one town on the map. The town is almost centrally located between these 4 mountains and this lower ridge. So we have Hill 175, Hill 188, Hill 191, and Hill 203. And in between we have the roads, some scattered woods, and a trail over here leading south from the summit of Hill 188. Special rules: morale. We're using morale, spotting, artillery, mines, and air rules. Command control is suggested, and we will play with command control. We are playing with command control. Also, the following special rule applies only to this scenario: World War II mines. A large number of World War II mines remain in this area unmarked. During the battle, tanks on both sides were lost to them. To simulate this, each player should roll a die every turn at the end of his movement phase. If a player rolls a 6, he must make a separate die roll for each of his units that moved. Another roll of 6 means that that unit suffers an immediate mine attack. And that is another good reason to find some way to indicate when units have acted, either fired or moved. Otherwise, you'll be going off of memory, and I think it'll probably reduce your enjoyment of the scenario. The scenario will last 10 turns. The game does not come with a turn track of any sort, so as usual when I'm playing this game, I just use the first 10 hexes on the edge here because the last digit is 1 through 10. So this is my turn track here. My little green marker here is my turn marker. We're still on turn 1. Now let's look at the Libyan forces, or the Libyan side, in a bit more detail. Though outnumbered, the Libyans have only to hold their position. Libyan forces, as given in the scenario book, it goes like this. The Brown forces, one tank company comprised of 10 T-62 tanks, one of which is a company commander. Now right away I will tell you that, and then I guess I'll explain after I go over the Egyptian order of battle. But first thing you'll notice is that the Libyans are not the brown forces; they are the green forces. Both sides in this game. Okay, why are they green? They're green because, for a couple of reasons. Specifically, both sides are supposed to have T-62s. But I never found any green T-62s. I only found brown T-62s. These are T-59s. Okay, so these are T-59s that I'm substituting for what are supposed to be T-62s. But I'm fighting them as T-59s. So to compensate, and I also did not have 10 T-59s. I think I only had 8 T-59s with one company commander. And so to compensate for the T-59s that are weaker than the T-62s, and to compensate for the fact that I only have 8 green T-59s, I went ahead and added 2 dismounted Sagger teams. So 2 dismounted Sagger teams, which we will look at in more detail later. I added 2 dismounted Sagger teams. So even though the order of battle is supposed to be brown forces, 1 company of T-62 tanks, instead I have basically a company minus of T-59s and 2 dismounted Sagger teams. My dismounted Sagger teams are back here in the rear trying to get the long-range shots, which actually they've already had some success with. Okay, so that's a description of how because the counter mix doesn't seem to support this scenario, I made some adjustments there. So there's no Libyan fire support. Libyan morale, hesitation point is 5, breaking point is 10. Libyan setup, they set up within 7 hexes of the western edge. So they were set up here. They've already moved into the town here. Now we'll go to I think we are on turn 2 actually. Now on the Egyptian side, the attacker, the Egyptian forces that are all here, they started off the map and they came on the map in the first turn. So the Egyptians have numerical superiority but must use it well if they hope to rout the Libyans. The Egyptian forces are supposed to be green. Again, they're brown here. It's supposed to be one tank company, 10 T-62s, one of which is a company commander, which actually I have. Actually, I have all these brown forces. So this is complete. It's just given as green forces in the scenario book. So we have 10 T-62s here, including one company commander right here. Then we have 1 mechanized infantry company, which is made up of 9 regular infantry squads, 1 company commander, and 10 BMP-1 APCs. These are all the APCs here. And this destroyed vehicle here was a good BMP-1 loaded with a squad of infantry. So they're off map now, is destroyed. So that's the lead vehicle. Otherwise, trailing here is the rest of the mechanized infantry company. And then the Egyptians have a MiG-23. So they have MiG-23 here, which we'll look at in more detail later. This is the second reason why I had to switch the sides, because only in the brown counter mix could I find a MiG-23. I never found a MiG-23 in the green counter mix. So because of the MiG-23 being brown, and because there were no T-62s on the green side, that's why I had to swap them. Okay. Egyptian fire support, they have 1 battery of field artillery with 12 salvos of HE. Egyptian morale, they have a hesitation point of 12, breaking point of 21, and the Egyptian forces enter the eastern map edge on turn 1, winning. The Egyptian player wins. Egyptian player wins if by the end of the scenario, 10 turns, no Libyan units are within 5 hexes of the point where the road exits the western map edge. That's right here, the one road. Only one road exits the western map edge. It's right here in the center. And so basically the Egyptians need to clear this zone, 5 hexes from this point right here. So this kind of zone here needs to be cleared of Libyans by the end of the scenario. And that's it. That's what's given for the scenario. Now let's talk about the first turn of play. We completed a first full turn of play, and there are some things to discuss. So the command control for the Egyptians, first turn, they're not even on the board, no command control. So then they went to first attacks. There's obviously no first attacks because they're not on the board, so we go right to movement. The first thing that the Egyptians did was they took their MiG-23. So let's take a closer look at this MiG-23. That's the MiG-23 counter. You see unit ID is Alpha 06. It has a front silhouette. MiG-23 unit name. The dash up here is where you have your strafing factor. So the MiG-23 has no strafing capability. The 2 is its bomb factor. And then if you flip it over, again you have the strafing capability, which for the MiG-23 is just a dash. And then you have its air-to-air combat factors. And they're broken up for close range, normal range, and long range. Now, there's going to be no air-to-air combat in this scenario because the Libyans have no air. This MiG-23 will not be strafing because its strafing factor is just a dash. So what that leaves is its bomb factor. So basically this MiG-23 is going to be used in its bomber role. And so that's what we did. What we did was we took start of the movement phase. We put the you put the plane on the map edge. Put it on the map edge where you want it to enter the map. So go over this in more detail. Fighter bombers, okay. First of all, air units in general. Helicopters and ground attack aircraft are air units used according to these rules. Arrival. If an air unit, oh, that's what was it. So you're always rolling for random arrival of your air assets. So if an air unit, helicopter, or ground attack aircraft is included in a scenario, roll a die at the beginning of each turn. On a die roll of 6, the air unit arrives, beginning its movement in any hex on a friendly map edge, any edge the player may safely enter or escape on. Probably should have done that, so I will do that. Put it on the friendly map edge here. Okay. I rolled and I got a 6 right off the bat. So right off the bat, the MiG-23 arrived. Any other roll it does not arrive, and it's possible that it will never arrive during the scenario since you're rolling each turn. So roll, you need a 6 for your error to arrive, and then you continue to roll each turn. Skip helicopters and transport helicopters, but then we go to fighter bombers. So during the move phase, a fighter bomber begins the player turn on any hex on a friendly map edge and moves along a straight hex row flight path. So a straight hex row like that. Like that. Until it leaves the map, and it is then assumed to circle around to begin another pass. Fighter bombers attack during their movement. Fighter bombers spot ground units in the same manner as do other units. There were 3 tanks here. They're just up here on the hill in the open, so there was no question that the MiG-23 would spot them and go right after them. Except that they never see concealed units. Units in concealed terrain must already have been spotted by friendly ground units in order for fighter bombers to attack them. All units on the board spot fighter bombers. So fighter bombers may either strafe or, if they have a load of explosive munitions, bomb. Fighter bomber counters are double-sided. One side lists the fighter bomber's strafing attack factor and a set of air-to-air factors, and the other side lists its strafing factor and bombing attack factors. So we already talked about the fact that in this scenario, this MiG-23 is going to only be used in its bomber role. So I can skip. So they discuss strafing runs. Then we go to the bombing run. When conducting a bombing run, a fighter bomber can attack 1 hex along its flight path with any number of attack factors up to the maximum listed on the counter. The number of attack factors used is considered as spent. So remember, the MiG-23 has a bomb factor of 2. Bomb factor of 2. So for example, if an aircraft with a bombing factor of 4 uses 1 attack factor in a bombing run, it is considered to have 3 bombing attack factors remaining for future attacks. All units in the target hex are affected by the bombing attack. Armored fighting vehicles, these are AFVs, these are tanks, T-59s, are each attacked with the number of bombing factors spent. So I chose to just have the MiG-23 go all out right off the bat, drop both of its 2 bombing factors on this stack of 3 tanks. So that means that each of the tanks is going to be attacked with 2 factors, combat factors, attack factors. So are each attacked with the number of bombing factors spent. Soft targets are attacked with triple the number of attack factors spent. For example, if a hex is attacked with 4 bombing factors, all AFVs would be attacked with 4 attack factors, and all soft targets would be attacked with 12 attack factors. So the first thing was I knew that the MiG-23's 2 bombing factors would attack each of the T-59s. The T-59s have a defense factor of 5, so I knew that each attack would be 2 to 5 or 1 to 3. Now, this was the first question. At first I thought it was that, and then I was thinking, well, wait a minute. Would it be against the T-59's flank armor? Okay, so if we go against the flank armor drops from 5 to 2. Then the 2 bombing factors, then it becomes a 1-to-1 ratio, and that actually makes a huge difference. What happened was I rolled for each of the tanks, and I got a 1, a 2, and a 5. A 1, a 2, and a 5. Now, if we compute it against its front armor, it's 2 to 5 or 1 to 3, in which case only one of the tanks would have been damaged, and the 2 and the 5 would have been no effect. Or if you compute it against the flank armor, it becomes 2 to 2 or 1 to 1, in which case we would destroy 2 tanks, because the 1 would destroy a tank, the 2 would destroy a tank, and the 5 would be no effect. So that's a huge difference. Either 1 tank is only damaged and 2 are just fine, or 2 tanks are destroyed outright and the 3rd survives. And basically I searched and searched and searched and found nothing in the rules. I thought about it, thought about every little implication of the rules, and I finally decided, well, I imagine that it would be, thinking about bombs as ordnance, thinking about, the ability of planes to attack, ground targets clearly in the open. I thought about all this stuff and decided, well, I would make the judgment that it's against the flank armor. So I went ahead and computed as 1-to-1 odds, and it destroyed 2. So right off the bat, that MiG-23 came in, dropped all its ordnance, and in the process destroyed 2 59s outright. Definitely wasn't expecting that at all, but that's how I went with it. Now, this is the nature of this game and the other games in this series. This is what, well, the nature of the rules are there are gaps. There are gaps, and you're going to have to play the game, to play all these really interesting scenarios with all these really interesting forces. You're going to have to, the cost is to do a lot of reasoning and fill in gaps, basically. Now, what's interesting in this case is that I decided that I would actually, since I had pulled out Sands of War, I decided to compare the rules. Now, Sands of War is also First Battle Series, but this came out a couple years later, and the rules are quite different. So this is in 1991, 3 years later after Test of Arms, and I guess not surprisingly, they add a clause which clears it all up. So they have bombing right there. So from the Sands of War rules, under fighter bombers, under attacks, you have a lot of the same text about strafing or bombing. Then you have a section on, there's the section on strafing, the section on bombing. It has almost the exact same, if not the same, paragraph. All units in the target hex are affected by the bombing attack. They have the same example. If a hex is attacked with 4 bombing factors, blah, blah, blah. But then they add a short paragraph next, which is inserted here. All attacks on AFVs by fighter bombers are conducted against the AFV's flank armor values regardless of the angle of the attack. So clarified later in Sands of War. But if you don't have access to any other game and you're just playing Test of Arms, I guess you would just have to reason through and make a judgment one way or the other. If you made the judgment that it was against the flank armor, well, that would correspond to what came out later in the First Battle Series. So, in the end, the MiG-23 had an incredible run. There's something called collective ground fire. If a fighter bomber passes within weapons range of any enemy unit at any time during the turn, so that would qualify here, At the end of the turn, the aircraft may be driven off by ground fire. This represents small arms and machine gun fire and is referred to as collective ground fire. Ground attack aircraft subject to collective ground fire is driven off on a roll of 6. It leaves this scenario and does not return. Only one roll for collective ground fire is allowed against each fighter bomber per game turn. This does not affect the ability of anti-aircraft weapons to fire at the aircraft. So I went ahead and rolled for collective ground fire, and it was not successful. So the MiG-23 was not driven off by collective ground fire. However, I think it's kind of obvious that there's nothing more for the MiG-23 to do. It's used up its 2 bombing factors. It's used up its 2 bombing factors. That is now effectively a 0. It has no strafing capability. It has no air-to-air roll because the Libyans have no air in this scenario. So effectively, the MiG-23 is done. There's nothing more for it to do, although it was not, destroyed or anything like that. But there isn't anything more for it to do given the scenario. Then, that was the start of the Egyptian movement phase. Then we moved on to the ground movement. I think first the T-62 company came on the board, and they're basically going to use this terrain. They're going to come around the mountain or over the mountain, going to come through this narrow valley. They're going to use this terrain to basically try to punch a hole in the Libyan southern flank here. So the T-62s came on board. They are just out of range of the Sagger team back here. So let's take a closer look at this Sagger team. But they're just out of range of this Sagger team. So maybe we'll get in closer than that. All right, here's the Sagger team. So unit ID 002, name Sagger, icon, movement allowance of 1, highlighted in a yellow box. The yellow box, remember, means that if it uses its missile weapon system, and the Sagger team only has a missile weapon system, it cannot move in the same turn. So the yellow box around the movement allowance of 1 means the Sagger team conducts a fire attack or a missile fire attack, or it moves, but not both in the same turn. It has a defense factor of 3, and it has a missile attack factor of 6, and a missile range of 16. So to remember things about missiles, there is no adjustments for range. It attacks at 6 out to a range of 16 hexes. There is no extreme range for missile units. And also the missile attack factor of 6 is halved, firing into woods. So that's the Sagger team. One of 2 Sagger teams. Make sure okay. I have my little mini die there to remind me about the 5 hex radius from this hex for determining victory. So this Sagger team over here, right here, this Sagger team is, okay, so after the T-62s came on the board, the BMPs started flowing onto the board, coming straight up on the road. There's some woods here, but that lead BMP-1, right there, that lead BMP-1 just came into range, 16 hexes from the Sager team back there, from the Sager team, and so the Sager team fired right across and destroyed the BMP-1. I rolled for survival of the mounted infantry and did not roll for them to bail out successfully, so they were destroyed with the BMP-1. Leaves a destroyed marker. Now, what to do about that Sager back here? Obviously pretty deadly at that range, 16 hexes. To compare those Sagers firing 6 combat missile attack factors at range 16, the T-59 only is only firing at gun factor of 6, range of 4. So extreme range out to 8, but that would be half the gunfire factor, so a gunfire factor of 3 out to range 8. And the Sager is still going twice that. So pretty impressive long-range firepower from the Sager team. But remember, 2 Sager teams, I have to play with limited missiles. I just have an aversion to allowing all missile armed units to just fire repeatedly. So I am playing under the optional rules. I'm playing with the limited ammo rule. So missile firing units have only limited number of missiles with them. To reflect this limit, each of these units may only fire its missile armament twice per scenario. I went ahead and copied down the unit ID for the Sager team and showed that they had already lost 1 missile attack. Of course, they took out a BMP-1. So these 2 Sager teams back here, once they've used their 2 missile attacks, well, they basically aren't worth anything except for victory point purposes. They aren't worth anything in the attack. They aren't threatening in any way the opponents or the Egyptians. So while they have that deadly firepower, they really only have, together, they only have 4 attacks. They've launched 1 and got a complete kill with it. But now we really only have 3 more Sager attacks out of this force. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. Yeah, that's all I wanted to go over. That was all the first turn. The only other thing is that when it came around to the Libyan turn, I rolled for the World War II mines for the Egyptians that came on the board, and I did not have to roll for mine attacks. And then when it came to the Libyan turn, they only moved into the town and into the woods here. Try to seize this defensive terrain, and I rolled for World War II mines against them as well. And I did not roll successfully such that I would have to check for mine strikes. So that's the end of turn 1. We can start turn 2. We'll have to bring in the Egyptian off-board artillery and continue to play out and see what these BMP mounted infantry can do basically against this tank force, this Libyan tank force. It does seem like the Libyans are going up against a pretty significant force for a 1 map scenario in only 10 turns. So, test of arms. Scenario 14, Hellfire Pass Revisited. Hellfire Pass Revisited, dated 22 July 1977. Egyptian force attacking a Libyan force in the defense.